Wasn't expecting anything less.
This hardly counts as warm-up.
Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I haven't posted in a bit, but this video is just going to be a pretty chill first impressions, maybe 30 something minute video with some gameplay in the background, just me talking about my opinions of this new honestly very impressive in a lot of ways game. So sit back, oh my gosh, excuse me, sit back, relax, grab some water, feel free to just have this on in the background. I've got a little outline here talking about a few things that I'm gonna go over in today's video. Firstly, my personal background, just to provide some context in gacha games in general. I'm quite the gacha player. I've played quite a lot of them, at the very least tried a lot of them. I currently consistently play Azur Lane and Zenless Zone Zero. I didn't play Genshin all that much, and I feel like this game is probably going to be the closest to Genshin in terms of exploring, collecting the resources in the open world, having to go around and do the daily stuff like that. I feel like that is quite similar to Genshin. I'm not sure about other open world games like maybe Wuthering Waves or something like that. I haven't played that one too much, although the combat animations in that game, spectacular. And the character designs, like the girl with the transparent legs that just came out or was revealed. I forget her name. Morning? Yeah. Anyway. So I've played quite a few. And I guess to kick things off, here's some footage of just me doing a few of basically the missions that give you the level up currency and the weapon and the credits and stuff like that. Just to talk about the combat. And overall, my impressions are very positive. It's not my favorite, but my impressions are positive, and I'll go through why that is. Me personally, I really just like action combat games, and this being an action combat game, that is great. However, Genshin is also an action combat game, and I don't like the combat in that game at all. I feel that the animations are, and just the overall art direction of that game is very, I think the word to describe it is smooth. Obviously, I think this game is too, in the literal sense. But what I mean by that is Genshin is very sort of clean, very controlled. It's not all that flashy. A little bit more flashiness is what I enjoy every once in a while. And also, I feel a lot of moves in Genshin don't have too much impact to them, whereas in this game, I feel like there is a really great amount of impact. I feel like the enemies really react when you hit them. I think the audio design in terms of the hits and stuff is really good. I think that this game really well does not only visual effects of the abilities, as I go to level up my character a little bit here. It does not only the effects of the abilities really well, but also the camera effects. Things like when the character is moving really fast to blur them or add some chromatic aberration, or focusing on certain characters with the camera when you swap into them when they combo or something like that. Like, for example, that ultimate that Ardelia just used, there's a lot of really great subtle camera effects like that chromatic aberration that I mentioned and other things that just make it so nice, and still I think really clear. Every character has sort of even if they use the same color palette, for example, all the fire characters use red, every character sort of has an identifiable shape language in terms of their VFX. And in terms of just like how they look, and so you never get too lost in it a lot of the time, especially because most of the time your partner characters, their effects are quite limited because they don't use skills or anything unless you explicitly direct them, and so that all feels really good. I quite like it. There's a good amount of hit stun on hits. Hit stun is so important. As personally as a fighting game player, hit stun is so important. So you really gotta feel it when you hit something really hard. And for example, Lavatane's, or I believe it's Lavatane from how she pronounced it in her EP. Anyway, Lavatane's
I'll do everything I can.
ultimate ability, where she has her big sword. When you use your skill during her ultimate, that gigantic 3-hit swipe, and that ends in like a gigantic boom. Like, oh my gosh, that is just fantastic. It feels so good. Moving on from the fire characters a little bit, I also built a little bit of an electric team with some of the characters that I got from my polls. Aviwena here, in terms of character design, quite nice. I'm not entirely sure what animal she's supposed to be. She's got tall ears and a short tail, maybe some sort of rabbit, or like I almost want to say jackrabbit. I'm not really sure why. But she's quite cool. I think there's a tiny bit of and maybe you're gonna understand that I kind of don't like Genshin through the majority of this video. I think this game has a lot of good character designs, but also some of them like sort of needlessly overly complicated in terms of like, I think Aviwena is an example. I think all of the bands and ropes and different arrows pointing in different directions and stuff like that she has on her sort of muddy the design, and she's not really one of the good ones. I think Lavatane is a good one. I think the Administrator is a great one, actually. Perlica is quite nice and simple. Unfortunately, Aviwena, I think, is just not it. I don't think you learn anything from her character in particular based on looking at her, which is quite unfortunate. But she does play really nice. But before I get too ahead of myself, just to wrap up the combat and stuff like that, as I just like level up my characters, you know how gachas are. Overall, in terms of the combat, I quite like it. In terms of systems, I think they've implemented the systems in a way that is unique to other gacha games, but at the same time feels really familiar. So you've obviously got elemental interactions between characters. They have made it so that the person who does the element second is the one who creates the elemental effect, and that really helps for clarity purposes. I think just makes it kind of simple. You've got a lot of different interactions between characters, like this character creates stacks, this character takes the stacks and eats them to do big damage. For example, Chen with her vulnerability, and then the Administrator can eat the vulnerability stacks to apply crush, right? Stuff like that is really cool. It makes you actually be strategic with how you play in a similar way to a lot of other gacha games, I think. But what's great too, though, that this game does uniquely, I think, not really, this is the first time I think an open world gacha game has done that, unless I'm just blanking on Wuthering Waves. But having every character on field all the time feels so good. Zenless has started moving in that direction with the Aftershock mechanic, just like, and other mechanics, just bringing characters on field more. By the way, Arklight, a much better character design. Also, always down for more dark-skinned characters. She is fantastic. Yeah, having every character on field all the time is great. The combo skills feel good, and it's cool to learn, like, oh, this character gets their combo skill from when another character does this particular thing. And so when you've got a good team, the order in which they play and the order in which they combo is going to be something that you can figure out and optimize. And obviously people already have. Just trying out the combat animations on some of these characters. Actually, Antal here brings up an interesting point, which I think is kind of disappointing about the combat, in my opinion, which is that it's expected, but the 4-star characters, in terms of their combat, and I'm not exaggerating when I say all 4-star characters feel god awful, and that's on purpose, right? Because you don't want to be fielding them, but at the same time, That does kind of suck. Right now, as the game has launched, there's really limited reason, what it seems like to me, to actually switch your point character that you're controlling. Your point character should just be the one that does the most damage, right? In terms of like their finishing hit and their basic attacks and stuff like that. Unlike Zenless, where there actually is opportunity to switch actually really often, and it's really encouraged. I think that's one thing that I am missing. Like, for example, on this team, I would like a reason to switch to Arklight. Like to actually play her for a little bit. Maybe I am simply bad, and you can let me know in the comments if there is such a reason for that. But that's sort of my impression, is like, for example, with the Lavatane team, you're not playing anyone other than Lavatane, right? If you have Ember on your physical team, you are probably only going to play Ember because she's going to give you the benefits of increased defenses and her healing and stuff like that when you play as her, right? So that's one thing that I don't think I like as much. But I mean, I play on mouse and keyboard, which might be a little suspect. Arklight is so cool. Good lord. But overall, I quite like it. The controls maybe are like slightly clunky. I bet I might be able to reprogram them, but having to hold the skill button to cast an ultimate is a little weird. I might change that. But otherwise, I quite like it. There's going to be a lot of room for me in terms of optimization and stuff like that. Getting better at the combos, getting better at aligning damage with stun windows, things like that. But I think it's quite good. I think they did a really good job. And sort of as related, good lord, this game runs like crazy well. It's optimized to hell and back. I'm playing on PC. It's so good. Obviously, I am aware of the launch issues, I'll put. But you gotta say, it's optimized crazy well. And I think Hypergriff did a great job on that for sure. The next topic that I have on here overall, I guess I'll talk a little bit more about the character design and overall art direction for the game.
Wow, you're awesome.
As we stare at a blank wall. Obviously, this game is a bit of a departure from other gacha games in that
Looking for me? You finally remember something?
well, I would say actually that Wuthering Waves is kind of close, but it's quite unique in that there is a lot of how would I say, it's a very desaturated color palette. I think, for example, on Arklight here, you've got these really strong blues and saturated blues every in very select places on her arm and on her chest. Yes, they do that on purpose. For Lavatane, for example, her hair is quite bright, and you've got some really bright pinks on her skirt. But overall, and the burnt edges and things on her skirt are really nice. But overall, those like really strong saturated pieces of color are meant as choice accents to an overall very muted and almost monochromatic color palette. You've got a lot of black, white, and gray, like a lot. You can see here that's like the majority of her dress, right? Arklight was the same. I think a lot of the characters here are in that way, and I think that contributes to a very industrial feeling. Of course, Endfield Industries, I think that's part of the art direction of this game, is that we're trying to go for something that feels like a system, something that feels very grounded and feels I don't want to say corporate, because I think corporate has like a bad connotation in terms of how a game feels, but it feels like an industry. You know, it feels like this is a company, and they're trying to go for efficiency. They're trying to go for maximum output. Even in the UI here in this particular footage, I realized I don't have a weapon on Lavatane, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and go for her. I'm gonna go for her weapon. But you can see it's the art direction is very it's minimalistic in the sort of shapes and geometry that it uses, but I wouldn't actually say it's very minimalistic overall. I think there's a lot of really maximalist flourishes. For example, in these screens, there's so many like small pieces of text and pieces of graphic design, like the pluses in the corners, lots of grids, lots of things that create like that sort of rigid system that I was talking about before. Lots of very solid geometric shapes that contribute to that feeling. And as I get the weapon, yippee! Very cool. The weapon design, for the most part, conforms to that, although obviously the higher you get in rarity, the more unique they get. You can even see it there. The lower rarity weapons sort of just look like your normal sort of geometric. This is a sword. This is a floating orb that somehow vaguely helps with arts. Yeah. The world overall feels... It doesn't feel bland. It still feels really feels really colorful and alive. However, the colors aren't necessarily, you know, the brightest. They have a lot of contrast to them though. Like there's a wide variation in terms of the shadows and the bright parts, in terms of the environment and the environmental design and things like that. For example, we can see here in this cave, as I was speaking about, it's a cave. There's going to be a lot of rocks, but overall, there is a lot of difference between the places where there is light and light sources and where there is not. Still visible, of course. But that creates contrast, creates this sort of stark feeling. It creates sort of a darker feeling. It creates an atmosphere, a little bit of more seriousness, which I think this game is going for as well. I was speaking a little bit about the animations earlier, but in terms of being big and flashy and exaggerated, I think this game actually doesn't do that as much as other games do. There is some. I think it's relatively restrained. Like, obviously, you're going to, if you compare it to Zenless Zone Zero, especially how Zenless Zone Zero was animated at the beginning, I think they've gone away from that style over time. But how Zenless was animated at the beginning, the characters were like jello. I mean, they were so expressive, still expressive, I guess, but I'm looking for almost in a cartoony way, almost in a rubber hose way. Their models would break all the time. Their limbs looked like noodles. It was very fluid. In a very, very exaggerated way. This game is fluid. You can see here, even in these menu animations, even in this idle animation here. But overall, a lot more restrained, with a lot of, I would say, restrained, but with a lot of detail. That I really quite like. For example, you've seen there a couple of times when your character is stopped and then you move in a particular direction. There's this really nice transition animation maybe I'll put it on screen here. There's this really nice transition animation where the character sort of steps forward a little bit, and you see that so rarely, and I love it. I absolutely adore those little flourishes like that. It gives again, it contributes to the atmosphere of realism in my opinion. These puzzles are like, oh my gosh. This one in particular was very easy, but some of them stumped me for quite the amount of time. Oh man. Maybe I can expound on the art direction a little bit more in another video with some more coherent thinking, but overall that's my thoughts for it. You can even see it here in this shot of the environment. You've got basically really bright yellows to help you accentuate like systems and important pieces, and then otherwise it's sort of it's relatively muted. And I think that just works. I think that works really well. The rest of this video is mostly going to be handling different systems of the game. So, and I guess I'll talk about those other systems as well, such as the AIC, the having to connect things to power, overall exploration, excuse me, and stuff like that. I've never actually been the biggest fan of simulation games or games where you have to manage stuff. Games like I don't know, like Civilization. I played Anno a little bit. Resource management games, that type of thing. Never been the biggest fan of them, and so coming in, I was a little concerned about whether or not I would actually enjoy it. And when I first started playing the game, the tutorials were like so wordy that I was like skipping through a lot of them, and I got so confused so fast. There is a lot going on with this system, as Twitter has probably shown you. There's so many different ways that you can optimize your factory, everything that you can do. I mean, it's crazy how much you can do. And I think this is like, of the gacha games, I think this is a very, very unique system. What it sort of reminds me of, if anyone has played Black Desert, is the sort of node connecting that you have to do in that game. Although it's very different because that game is more about like resources, whereas this is like literally about electrical power and doing that sort of thing. My AIC here, please don't judge it. It's a work in progress. I think I might have messed with it after. I'm not the best at this sort of thing, but what I realize is that I actually am enjoying it. It's very structured. The game, to its credit, provides a lot of tutorials. And it's actually relatively straightforward once you start getting into it. It's essentially, you've got some raw materials that you get from places in the environment and from gathering. You can even set up auto harvest for some of those materials with the correct pieces of equipment. And then you put that item through a machine and it becomes another item. And you put that item through a machine, it becomes another item. You put two items that you made already together into a machine and it becomes another item. And so far, that's sort of the extent to which I've played it. And that is nice. It's satisfying, I have to say. Like building all of these towers here in this area. Building the electrical systems that connect everything together. Like these are currently unpowered, so I'm going to have to put down an electric pylon. And what really helped, by the way, was the upgrade that lets electric pylons also be power sources. that like really helped my brain instead of having to connect all of the pylons to a single relay tower. Using the pylons together was actually quite nice of an upgrade. So I do recommend doing that. But it's really satisfying. Like connecting the wires is as simple as running to the place, and then you get this really nice, cool like line that forms in between the things that have connected power. Looks really great visually when you're just like looking around on the map and seeing all of the things that you've built. It's super cool. I didn't ever expect to be into the resource management thing. It might help that the rest of the game is quite nice, and I like it quite a bit personally. But it is really nice. I'm not sure if there is a way to harvest those rare plants and stuff automatically. It might be that I have to just walk to them every day, in which case that would kind of suck. But it's not too bad. Like all these electric mining rigs are super easy to make as long as you have the resources, of which you probably have a lot if you've been just putting stuff into its correct place in the AIC. It's really not all that bad. There are a lot of resources to manage. Like if you look at this depot screen, to be honest, I don't know what half of the things in here do, or what they're for. Maybe I'm not even there yet. But overall, I am actually enjoying that system. I like that I haven't had to go too deep too fast as well. It's been a good. The story has done a decent job in terms of the pacing of introducing you to new items. I would say the tutorial is like maybe slightly too hand-holdy, and also provides too much text. Like I wish it would show you more things instead of giving you like a reticle that's like, click here to do this, now click here to do this, now go do this, and then click here to do this, click here to do this, click here to do this. That wasn't necessarily great. I do quite like the in-game, not the in-game. There's a menu that has like a bajillion tutorials in it. I think those are much better because they just give you a task and they ask you to do it. With less hand-holding, but the main story has been like giving a lot. I think that tends to be the case with gacha games. What it seems like to me is that the difficulty of its systems is tuned to such a degree that they really want anyone to play it. Like it's very accessible, and that makes it. And that makes certain things a little easier than others for people who play games a lot, let alone gacha games a lot. Zenless does the same thing, where it's like you obliterate stuff in the story mode so fast that you can't even hear all the dialogue play. At least that's what happens to me, because I'm a player who has like optimized his teams to a moderate degree and who cares about getting, the big damage numbers and stuff like that. And not everybody does, and that's totally fine. But I only hope that the tutorial serves for that purpose, for the people who it's targeted at. Those recycling stations, by the way, those are really important to upgrade. From what I know, it's good to put in the money to make more money in the future. And so overall, I think I would say that I quite enjoying the game so far, given that I am hyper focused on it enough to make a YouTube video, and I haven't made one in a while. My hyper focus tends to be exactly what lets me make these things. But I just like yapping. Honestly, I might just do a whole separate video about the art. And if you're interested in that, let me know if you want to see that. Something a little more structured. I talked about it here to some degree, but I really, that's my main thing when it comes to video games is, well, number one, the combat, number two, the art direction, I think. I didn't even talk about the story in this game because, to be frank, it has not made me give a shit about it yet. Maybe it will, but we'll see. We'll see. And this is also someone who doesn't know anything about original Arknights story, so bear that in mind. We're coming up to a section of the story where people might not know what the fuck is happening because it's like the quarry whatever, and that's about where I stopped playing. So we're getting close to the end of the video here. Is there anything else I wanted to oh, one last thing to mention is, I guess I didn't like, which I could have talked about earlier but I forgot, is the weapon gacha system. The character gacha system, you know, seems all right at first glance. You know, 120 pulls for the banner character. The fact the way the 50/50s work is really weird, and there's some other stuff. Overall, it seems quite nice, and not really all that different from other gacha games, which at a base level, you just sort of have to say it sucks because all gacha systems suck. You just have to acknowledge that to some degree. But having to pull the weapon on the weapon gacha using currency you only get by pulling the character, unless I'm not understanding that correctly, is really fucking weird. That's really weird. I do not like that one bit. Because what happens if you get the character in your first 10 pull and then you have no currency to get their weapon? Then you have to keep pulling. That feels weird. I'm not too sure about that. Maybe some further testing is going to be needed, but otherwise, other than those other complaints that I had about the game, and the fact that the story is a little wordy, I probably mentioned that before. And there's this really annoying thing. I don't know if anyone noticed it yet, but when you're trying, if you read the text faster than they speak the line of the text, and you want to skip to the next line of text, the arrow to skip only appears like 3/4 of the way through the text, and it's also really inconsistent when it appears. But that's like kind of usually when it appears. So usually you click once to have the full text appear before it finishes scrolling, and then you click again to go to the next line of text. Maybe there's a setting somewhere where the text doesn't scroll and it just shows it to me. That would be so much better, because right now the inconsistent way that happens is so annoying. But anyway, to end the video on a much better note, I am very much enjoying the game. Been having a lot of fun playing it with my friends. Everything feels really good so far. I was lucky on my polls for Lavatane and other characters, so that's nice. And I'm gonna keep playing it. Maybe I'll make some more videos about it in the future. I'm not really the guide making type of person, but I am the yap about my opinion type of person. So if you're interested in hearing about that, feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment about whatever, whether you agree to disagree with me or something, and that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. There's others like this about other games on my channel. Feel free to check those out, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Talk to you later. Goodbye.